Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review, a out-of-date Dynamite review, and this is a review of this past Wednesday's edition of Dynamite, which was the December 2nd edition, and you guys are going to be getting two videos from me today. Of course, this one and the SmackDown review later on tonight. And this was Dynamite's go-home show for All Out, which is tomorrow night, which there will be no All Out review from me tomorrow night. I'm going to be working late, so I'm not going to cover All Out. But Dynamite, I thought it was a good show this past Wednesday, and thought it hyped up All Out pretty decent. And on the show, we saw Santana and Ortiz take on the Best Friends. Their rivalry, their feud is continuing. We saw an 8-man tag with the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express taking on Private Party and SCU. We also saw Jericho versus Joey Janela. We saw the AEW Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa, debut on Dynamite. And she ended up taking on Serena Debb. And in the main event, we saw Moxley versus Mark Sterling, who is MJF's lawyer. If you saw Dynamite last week, which I didn't cover Dynamite from last week or the week before. So I haven't covered Dynamite in 2 weeks because it was preempt because of the NBA playoffs. You had that one on Saturday night, and you had one that was on Tuesday night. No, not Tuesday, Thursday night. The last week's was on Thursday night. So I didn't cover those 2 weeks of Dynamite though, but yeah, if you saw Dynamite last week in the segment with Moxley and MJF, Mark Sterling, who is MJF's lawyer, Moxley ended up signing like a contract, and Sterling ended up signing it. And Sterling did not know that he would be facing Moxley the next week, which was this week's Dynamite. So, but that was a really great segment there. And I liked how the way in that segment Moxley was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that before you hit puberty, someday," which I thought that was hilarious. It was something like that Moxley said. But all in all, Dynamite this week was a good show. So let's get on with the Dynamite review. Also, we saw the return of Excalibur on commentary for Dynamite this week. He was alongside, of course, Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross. So it's good that Excalibur is back after the whole thing that was around him. The racist thing that he said, which I read it in a article. But Dynamite kicked off with Santana and Ortiz versus the Best Friends, Chucky T, Chuck Taylor, and Trent. So we have this feud between these guys. Of course, this all started when Santana and Ortiz ended up destroying Trent's mom's van, where they just completely destroyed it. They spray painted on the front side of the van in red spray paint. And then you had them take the Best Friends' luggage. Another week they took their luggage, the Best Friends' luggage, and they were in the shower and they poured bleach all over their luggage. So the feud is continuing, and this was a pretty decent matchup here. The match didn't get underway until like maybe like 5 minutes later, because Santana and Ortiz made their way out. The best friends end up attacking Santana and Ortiz from behind during their entrance. They brawled on the outside. We had Ortiz end up choking Trent out at ringside. Chucky T ended up setting up a bunch of chairs at outside of the ring, and he throwed Santana. Santana ended up throwing a chair at Chucky T's head, and they battled up the ramp. Santana then ended up throwing Chucky T off the ramp through the chairs, which I thought looked pretty cool. And it looked brutal also. So while that was happening outside, we finally get the match started, where Trent and Santana finally got into the ring. Trent ended up doing a standing double knee drop to Santana. And it was just back and forth between these guys. And you had Chucky T later on the match. He got back into the match. He ended up doing a flip over the top rope, and he took down Santana and Ortiz, which looked really cool. So at the end of the match, you had Santana end up grabbing a baton from under the ring. And he ended up smacking Trent in the back with it. And Ortiz ended up going for the cover on Trent. And there you go. Santana and Ortiz end up winning the match. But all in all, it was a decent match. And the feud still going to be continuing with these guys. So, all in all, decent match between these guys. Then we went backstage. We saw MJF and Wardlow. And MJF ended up saying that the one way All Out is ending is with him walking out with the AEW World Championship. So we had one of his guys come over, and he ends up telling MJF that his lawyer, of course Mark Sterling, has locked himself in the room so he doesn't have to fight Moxley. So Wardlow ended up kicking the door in, and he ended up bringing out Mark Sterling. MJF ended up saying that he understands that Sterling is afraid of Moxley. And he ended up saying that there's nothing scarier than getting in front of his goals, of MJF's goals. And he ends up saying, here's two options for him. Get in the ring or get in a wood chipper, as what MJF ended up telling Sterling. So that was that. So then we had a 8-man tag. It was Young Bucks and the Jurassic Express versus Private Party and SCU. And this was a fun 8-man tag. This was a good match. The winners of this match will get to face each other tomorrow night at All Out. And you had, the Young Bucks. They weren't happy after Hangman and Paige cost them their match last week on Dynamite. They ended up kicking Hangman and Paige out of the Elite. And there was part in the match where this fan, or this plant fan that they put there, and he was holding up a Hangman drink my beer sign. So Matt Jackson was on the floor. You end up seeing that. He rips the sign up. He grabs the sign from the fan, rips it up, and then he takes this fan's beer and dumps the beer on his head. So this guy, or this plant fan, was doused with beer. And we had, in the match, we had Jungle Boy and Kazarian end up getting into the match. Kazarian was pretty good at this point in the match, where he was on fire. He was just laying strikes, and he ended up hitting a lariat on Matt Jackson. And you had Christopher Daniels end up doing a moonsault to the floor and took out both the Young Bucks. And at the end of the match, you had the Young Bucks and the Jurassic Express win. Matt and Nick ended up hitting the BTE trigger on Mark Gwen. And that was that. So the Young Bucks and the Jurassic Express win the match, and they will get to face at All Out tomorrow night. Both teams will face each other tomorrow night. But overall, this was a very fun 8-man tag. I enjoy these teams. I enjoyed the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick. The Jurassic Express, I really like. Pirate Party, very fun team. SCU, of course, former AEW World Tag Team Champions. They're still really good. But overall, very fun 8-man tag. So then we had Kenny Omega come out. Kenny Omega, one half of the World Tag Team Champions. He ended up coming out to the ring. He ended up talking with Tony Schiavone. And Kenny Omega was wearing a shirt in tribute to Hana Kimura. And Tony Schiavone ended up noting how Hangman and Paige wasn't by Omega's side this week. He ended up bringing up what happened last week with Hangman and Paige and the Bucks. And Omega ended up saying that everyone makes mistakes. But on Saturday, him and Paige will work together against FTR. Omega ended up saying, just like every other match, they will win it. So then we see FTR and Tully Blanchard walk out. And FTR was walking out with a cooler. And they say they have no problem with Kenny Omega. And that they just want to have a great match. So FTR ended up bringing Omega some chocolate milk. So Omega ended up saying that there's nothing more he likes than chocolate milk. And that he's not going to spend time around some dickheads, as he was referring to FTR. So Omega ended up saying that they can drop the act and let's just get to the brawl, because they have another match to get to. Omega ended up telling Tully Blanchard to stay back because he can smell his adult diapers from here, which I thought that was funny. That was hilarious of what Omega had to say. So Adam Page ended up making his way out to the ring. FTR ended up saying that they never told Paige to do anything about last week. They ended up saying that Paige is nothing but a little boy and that he got into his own head. So FTR tried to get in Paige's head, and Kenny Omega ended up telling him not to listen. So FTR ended up taking their World Tag Team Championships, Omega and Paige's World Tag Team Championships. And they end up going to hand the titles over to Omega and Paige. And both FTR, they just dropped the titles to the mat. And then they left the ring. So then we saw Paige ends up picking both of the titles up. And he goes to hand one to Omega. And we see that Kenny Omega is already out on the floor. But that was that. I thought this was a good segment. gives you hype for the match tomorrow at All Out. And then we saw Alex Marvez. He was backstage. He was interviewing Jericho, the Demo God, aka Le Champion, about his match at All Out against Orange Cassidy. Jericho ended up telling Marvez that fans are going to get to experience the culmination of Jericho versus Cassidy, and that they will find out who is the better man. Jericho ended up saying that he is the one who made Cassidy a main event star. And he says, but that's why he needs to put a bullet in Cassidy's head and show him that he's not on the same level as him, as Jericho. Jericho went on and he ended up saying that he's going to end Cassidy's dreams with a little bit of the bubbly. And Jericho then ended up saying about Joey Janela that things are going to get a whole lot worse as he is looking to show Cassidy a taste of what he's in store for. And so that was basically what Jericho had to say. Good interview with Jericho here. And then we had the match, Jericho versus Joey Janela. Of course, Jake Hager came out alongside Jericho. We saw Orange Cassidy coming through the crowd of the Daily's Place to watch this match with Jericho and Janela, as what Hager suggested to him that that Orange Cassidy would go out there and watch the match. And Jericho was shown wearing a Orange Cassidy shirt for this match. So the match started. Jericho went right at Janela, threw Janela into the corner, threw a few punches into Janela's face. And, we had Cassidy watching the match. And, there was Joey Janela chants, going. So at the end of the match, you had Jericho lock in the walls of Jericho. And that was that. Jericho ended up winning. Janela tapped. Overall, it was a pretty short match, in my opinion. Post-match, Jericho ended up punching away at Janela. And we saw Jericho end up ripping the turnbuckle padding off. Tosses Janela into the exposed turnbuckle. And then Hager was shown laughing. Janela was then busted open after that turnbuckle shot, that exposed turnbuckle shot. And Jericho ended up putting Janela's blood on Cassidy's shirt. So Jericho ended up ripping the Cassidy shirt off. He throws it to Cassidy. Orange Cassidy then ran into the ring, and he starts swinging away at Jericho. Hager came in to help out on Jericho. And then we saw Sonny Kiss. Sonny Kiss ended up heading to the ring, hit Jericho with a running forearm. Hager ended up planting Sonny Kiss. And Cassidy ended up, ditching Hager. And Cassidy ended up doing the swinging DDT on Jericho. And Cassidy was backed away in the corner. And he was looking to hit the Superman punch to Jericho. But Hager ended up getting Jericho out of the ring. Then Cassidy ended up pulling, a little bit of the bubbly out of his bag. So he ended up opening it up, and he ends up taking the bubbly, and he dumps it and gives Jericho a thumbs down. So that was that. I liked how the way this was done. Thought it was pretty cool with Cassidy having, the bubbly, and he had it in his bag. He poured it out. He poured it on the, on the mat. Gave Jericho a thumbs down. I enjoyed it. This brings, a little hype to their match at All Out tomorrow. And then we saw Guevara come out, and this was during the picture-in-picture on TNT, where Guevara ended up having, of course, his famous cue cards, and Matt Hardy was shown looking on from the stands. Matt Hardy ended up having his own cue cards, and we're going to get, Matt Hardy and Guevara, Matt Hardy versus Guevara, and it's going to be a broken rules match tomorrow night at All Out. And if Matt Hardy ends up losing the match, he will have to leave AEW. So that's going to be a good match. And they had a tables match, both Matt Hardy and Guevara. They had a tables match last week on Dynamite. And then we had Brian Cage, Taz, and Ricky Starks end up coming out to the ring. And this whole segment I thought was really awesome. And we had a Brawl and Suit, which I'll get to explaining. So Taz got on the mic, and anytime you hear Taz get on the mic, you have to listen to what the guy has to say. You have to stop what you're doing and listen to what Taz has to say. It's the same, that I'm like with MJF. When MJF comes out and he gets on the mic, stop what you're doing and listen to what the guy has to say. Because, both these guys, are good on the mic. Taz still has, good mic skills. When he gets on the mic, still knows how to deliver a promo. So Taz ended up saying that either Brian Cage or Ricky Starks will win the Casino Battle Royal tomorrow night. He ended up telling Darby Allin that he needs to wake up because Ricky Starks is going to destroy him. So Taz then ends up mentioning Lance Archer. He mentioned that Lance Archer can't deal with Brian Cage. So we had Jake the Snake Roberts, end up heading out along with Lance Archer. And Roberts end up letting Taz know that he's getting interrupted this week. Because, Taz ended up interrupting Roberts last week when Roberts and Lance Archer were in the ring. So Roberts ended up saying that they are walking out with nothing. And what he sees are the best set of losers he's ever seen. So we had Roberts and Lance Archer. They were shown getting into the ring. Eddie Kingston then ended up coming out with his group. And he ended up saying that they are live. And they're going to keep things moving. So then we saw Tully Blanchard end up heading out with Shawn Spears. And Taz ended up saying that they will fight everyone, especially Archer. And then we had a Brawl and Suit, which I thought this brawl was really awesome. You had Billy Gunn in there. He got into the ring. Darby Allin ended up making his way out, and he went right into the ring and went right to Ricky Starks, taking Ricky Starks down. And we had the guys who are going to be in the Battle Royal tomorrow night all go at it. So Shawn Spears was shown finally making his way into the ring. He ended up being up on some of the guys in there. We saw Hager come out, Santana and Ortiz of the Inner Circle. And the Best Friends Chucky T and Trent came running out, and they began fighting. Santana, Ortiz, and the Best Friends, and this went on for maybe like 7, maybe like 10 minutes, maybe. And the show went to commercial. It had the picture-in-picture, and then it came back, and they were still fighting all these guys. You saw the Lucha Brothers, the Butcher and the Blade. They were all going at it. And then we had a Dark Order vignette with Brody Lee. We're showing Brody Lee destroying Cody. Brody Lee ended up saying that you've created this monster, and now this monster is taking over AEW. So we saw, that. So then we saw Thunder Rosa versus Serena Debb. Thunder Rosa making her AEW debut. She is the NWA Women's World Champion. And she ended up taking on, of course, like I said, Serena Debb. And I'm not familiar with Thunder Rosa's matches. I haven't seen any of her matches. It's cool that she's the NWA Women's World Champion. I don't watch NWA. But if you guys don't know who Serena Debb is, she was the one who was in the Straight Edge Society alongside CM Punk and Gallows, where she ended up getting her head shaved, and she became a part of the Straight Edge Society. So you all, will remember that. So, but she in this match, Serena Debb, she did a decent job here, working with Thunder Rosa here. But Thunder Rosa, she was really good here in this match. But she ended up winning the match and defeating Serena Debb. She ended up hitting the Thunder Driver to Serena Debb. There you go. Thunder Rosa ended up winning the match. But it was a good match. It wasn't bad. And then we saw Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley, of course, the AEW World Champion, backstage. And he ended up saying that MJF climbed the rankings. And tomorrow night, he gets his shot. He ended up saying that MJF, he shouldn't sweat anything. The campaign, the lawyers, the media. And Moxley ended up saying that when the bell rings, all that goes away. And it just comes down to MJF being willing to kill or be killed. Moxley ended up saying that 2020 has been bad enough already. Yeah, we could all agree. This year fucking sucks. It's one of the worst years in existence of this earth. And he ended up saying that we can let MJF's dumbass be AEW World Champion. Moxley ended up saying that everything MJF has done thus far has just been the easy stuff. So there you go. That's what Moxley had to say. Very decent promo from Moxley here. And then we had Tony Schiavone alongside Big Swole. And Big Swole ended up saying that tomorrow on the All-In Buy-In, Big Swole is going to show up at Britt Baker's job, where they will be fighting. So then we see Reba. Reba comes, and she's disguised as a pizza woman. Not a instead of a pizza guy, it's a pizza woman. She's delivering pizza to Big Swole, Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone's like, oh, we didn't order pizza. So Big Swole was saying she's not fooling anybody because she knows it's Reba. So we had Britt Baker come from behind and attacked Big Swole with her crutch. And she ended up shoving Big Swole's face into the pizza. And she ended up hitting a super kick and then applied the lockjaw on Big Swole. So then we saw our officials finally came. They ended up breaking up the brawl between Big Swole and Britt Baker. And their match tomorrow night, it's going to be a tooth and nail match. So it's going to be Big Swole versus Britt Baker in a tooth and nail match. There you go. Big Swole finally getting her hands on Britt Baker after months, with Baker being injured in that wheelchair. And then we had the main event. Moxley versus Mark Sterling, who's MJF's lawyer. This was awful, in my opinion. This was absolutely awful. Mark Sterling, he looked like a rejected superhero in that attire. I mean, what the hell was that? It looked like if Marvel had a rejected look for Captain America. If they had Captain America look like that with the red, white, and blue, it was laughable. His whole attire, Mark Sterling's attire, was laughable, in my opinion. So we just had Moxley just throwing around Sterling. Wardlow ended up coming out along with Sterling. And Moxley ended up asking for forgiveness for what he's about to do to Sterling. So Moxley ended up scaring Sterling, yelling at him, and he offered Sterling to hit Moxley. So Sterling ended up throwing a punch at Moxley. Moxley ducked, and then Moxley ended up coming in slapping Sterling in the ear. So Sterling ended up going out of the ring. Moxley then ended up charging Sterling out of the ring once again. And this was awful. This was an awful main. Then this was the main event. This main event was awful. So Moxley, of course, ended up winning the match. Paradigm shift to Sterling, and that was that. And I have to say, what happened post-match was probably the best part of this end to the show. So post-match, we had Wardlow come into the ring. He ended up taking down Moxley, ended up hitting a spinning F10 to Moxley. Wardlow then ended up doing another F10 to Moxley. And MJF then is shown walking out with his walker. And he makes his way to the stage. MJF then ditched the walker and his neck brace. He ended up ditching his coat. And he was just staring at Moxley. MJF made his way into the ring. And he gets on Moxley and he throws punches at Moxley. And we rarely see MJF like this. How the way he was here. So he was kicking Moxley in the face when Moxley was in the corner. And he ends up beating Moxley up some more. He yelled into the camera, "You want violence? You got it. You got it." So then MJF ended up asking for his diamond ring, the AEW diamond ring, from Wardlow. Wardlow takes the ring off, puts it on MJF. MJF then ended up punching Moxley in the head with the ring. And because of that, we saw Moxley end up bleeding. He was busted open from that shot by MJF with the ring. MJF was then telling Moxley to fight for the fans. And he was just pounding away still at Moxley. MJF ended up putting some of Moxley's blood on his face. He then ends up taking the AEW World Championship from Wardlow, and he ends up holding it up. And the show ends with MJF saying, "This is the future for the next 25 years." And then that was how Dynamite went off the air. But this was really good. Really enjoyed this. This was better than the match that we saw with Moxley and Sterling. And, it gets, hype for the match tomorrow at All Out, which I hope, and I do know it'll probably be a very good match between these guys. I want to see MJF as the AEW World Champion, because when you look at this guy, he's championship material. But I have to say that Moxley's going to come out still retaining the title. But I could be wrong. Maybe it's MJF's time to be the champion. Like I said, when you look at the guy, he is championship material. And that was Dynamite. Overall, very good show. It was a good, go-home show for All Out. And we'll see what happens tomorrow at All Out, which I'll probably be reading the results later on tomorrow night, after I get out of work. But that's it for the Dynamite review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. And definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And until next video, which of course will be the SmackDown review later on tonight. So until then, see you all later tonight with the SmackDown review.